hurt himself a couple of the last games, especially this is the last one before the halfway point on the day. So where you stand on this leaderboard is really going to be impactful, because if you want to take away that first place spot and you find yourself maybe 30th on that leaderboard, the only way to make up that gap in a consistent manner is getting those eliminations and a high placing game. So you want to be able to control your destiny as much as possible here.
Robbing in for Strokey. Off spawn, taking a bit of damage as they glided their way on in. But we've seen them fighting at times rather early into these games. They'll get some time to loot up on the shore here. One of the messier situations we've seen throughout this weekend. I know all the Marius and Sandguild fans will be watching this with their eyes closed, shying away, because triple contested has just been such a big hurdle for them to try and climb over. A hurdle too big, a hurdle that not many teams can overcome.
Definitely going to be a tough one. You can see them not even getting the best of the loot out of the underworld, even getting forced down to the low ground, even targeted at one point or another. And then even we're talking about how contested the underworld is, you see at least 2 teams split dropping outside of the underworld. So even if they try to disengage and find loot elsewhere, it's already going to be taken. And we're seeing a lot of these early game fights over towards Pleasant Piazza. Volko and Vortex, they're at least able to get 1 elimination in that last game, which forced separation. And already it looks like they have the numbers advantage. They almost have them down to rights. That's also on the other side, where Marco's trying to alleviate some of that pressure, and he's done a successful job landing crucial shots in that moment to alleviate the pressure. But the fight will continue with Vortexers going down first. Oh no, Volko just quick to go down immediately after what looked like a fight that was going to go away of Volko, and Vortexers instantly got twist turned upside down.
And what a shot that was from Asa to just stomp the fight out there, right? Not even leave a chance for a 1v2 or anything of that nature. Veno and Tayson, after it was a big game, a statement game for them, keeping their FNCS alive, keeping that distance between them and the gentle mates, Snazy and Podesite.
Been a real interesting weekend so far for Veno and Tayson. Even though it's not as contested as a triple or quad contest like we see in some of the POIs on the map, still 2 teams that don't necessarily want to split the loot. They try to force their upper hand any chance that they do get as Blaha combat. They do have a little bit of elevation advantage over Pink and Vico, and they're trying to use it the best that they can, but Pink and Vico are really not backing down. And in fact, they're actually doing the opposite. They're taking inches, moving upward on towards this mountain, because they might feel like they have an upper hand in this fight. But Vico, just like that, just gets beamed, and he doesn't really have shields to regenerate. You hear the Thunderbolt of Zeus coming out as well. Nothing is going to be given in a lobby like this.
Yeah, and this has ultimately been part of the story for them, that they'd like people to forget, right? The early surge, the early damage has been the key to team success, right? When we look at the best teams, it's the teams that have had success in that regard. Prodoxy and Trip trying to write that story for themselves, right? Pushing in here on restored reels, and Upple and Helechis, they didn't seem prepared for it at all. These guys look stacked. Wow.
Really got their pick of the litter. What do you want to grab? What do you want? Big pots? You want splashes, big bush bombs, and I do like the addition of the big bush bomb, especially with those surge towers that we've been seeing throughout FNCS, how massive they can be. Just want to give yourself as big an advantage. And at this stage of the game, when you have the best of the best players in all of the region, it's those little differences that really make and shake things up.
Absolutely. Mount Olympus looking rather quiet compared to what we've seen some other times. Waterbending for Thomas will be very nice, because he can do exactly that. Take shots from afar again, just how strong that weapon's been for the Surge meta. Players, again, finally start to clock on, closer to the grand finals.
Ready to take a little bit more risk here. Checks on Glub Sheet. The same 2 teams that were inside of the underworld. taking their fight outside of the underworld, and you can see in the mini-map there's even third parties looking over on in this direction, seeing if they can get some surge for themselves. There's like Trickster and Glubshy do have the elevation advantage, but it only means so much against a team like Marius and Sangild, who they actually like to play in toward those box fights. And if you take the bait and drop down into a box fight scenario, I think that's where Marius and Sangild will have a huge upper hand. Wow. He really thought he was going to be able to escape. Good snipe, taken down. The other team is now moving into Marius' position and taken down as well. That Cheeps and Turtle. The Underworld sandwich looking real. That's all three teams taking their fight from inside of the Underworld to the outside.
Marius fans, look away. Don't watch. This is painful. Again, like you say, man, that sandwich is closing in on them. I mean, Glubshy, I believe, is the one with the sniper, right? Hits that shot. Crazy. Sangild just didn't stand a chance. And then Turtle and Cheeps are just waiting there at border patrol, not letting those guys come through.
Almost like Turtle and Cheeps are just waiting for a full-on fight to break out that they could third party. Realized it wasn't much. Got a couple shots and kept on with their business. To jump on board Cammy and Seti, and this would be a great time to see how they're getting that early game surge.
Yeah, and you can see there just sort of the spare shields available in that base that Cammy had. It's interesting, right? From this position, that base that they play for, there's a lot of lines of sights towards fencing, a lot of stuff going on when it comes to what's happening in the east when you start looking towards the Mount Olympus area and brawlers, and of course they can start seeing what's going on over towards the west as well. It doesn't look like there's much going on this game, so it'll be interesting to see how much damage they actually have accrued and whether or not that starts to become a problem for them. Of course, there's this bunker here as well that they do like to play for when it spawns in, but I do believe yesterday they were actually just letting Andalex and Sato have it in a lot of the games.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like, there's almost no point if you already have your perfect loadout. Maybe you can get some extra heals or deny it from another team, but you also don't want to be one of those teams that gets stuck down there, camped by a whole nother team, and have your gameplay kind of dictated by whether or not they want to disengage and kind of let you out for free. I see Swizzy and Vanyak in the distance. Reason and Vidil trying to catch up, close the gap. Third place. And this could be a big moment for someone like Reason as well, newly signed to Exceed. And now can you imagine signed for the first major and you win that first championship, you get your global spot secured, because it's more than just the money that we've been talking about and that is up for grabs.
100%, and especially for Reason and Vidil, right? Flashback to Major 1, they were the team in first place at the end of day one, right? They know what it feels like to be in that pole position. Reason's experienced that twice now in his career, right? Back in Chapter 4, Major 1, playing with Janice. He was first place at the end of day one. So he's really been in touching distance multiple times now. And so I know he will be hoping that they can finally make it their time. Oh dear, what's going on here from Cringe and Noms? Oh man. Overhala, Finn. Oh, they ain't got a Scooby-Doo. They ain't got a clue. Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, that's just unfortunate. They thought it was free. And that's the thing. If it hasn't opened yet and you see that much building around it, you almost have to know that it's not going to be a free bunker. Our team is either there or going to be returning in that direction.
Cringe now using the wings in fighting maneuvers. I mean, we see them being used in rotates, but he used it to initiate their fight. I mean, look, for Finn and Overhala, that could have been a lot worse, right? Typically in that spot, you expect one of them to just get knocked and then the game's done, but they've leveled it out to at least a position where they can have some sort of a fight. Again, not a fight, it looks like they're winning at the moment, but it's not done yet. We've seen teams squander better situations.
They're not really able to fight back. Cringe is just taking piece after piece, almost closing them in, not really giving them any options to move around. Once he goes and pushes them one direction, he immediately goes right back on top and goes to work trying to get another angle. Finally, some shots going to be fired back, but not really enough to gain some confidence. Instantly pops the big pot, trying to have a huge strength, but in comes Dexy. Got to imagine Eclipse got to be nearby somewhere for them to feel that confidence to try to third party it.
They're maybe now they just go back down and get the bunker. They've dealt a bit of damage. They say, all right, we'll get the loot. We didn't get the confirm the limbs like we wanted, but we'll get the damage. We get the loot now from the bunker. Jobs are good in.
Back on board. This time around the other side of that tower. It's like Swizzy and Vanya, Vidil, Reason just kind of target each other in the distance. I do know it was Vanya and Swizzy at one point tried to chop down the entire Surge tower, trying to get rid of it all together, and you can see their whole entire plan slash goal is one of them goes up, goes and gets Surge, while the other one farms around, gets whatever looting left, and then once they go ahead and find what they need, they get the material, they switch positions, and because of the Wings of Aquarius, they're easily able to cover the gap in case one of them gets pushed, so that way they can lend that helping hand. I feel like right now, because they're at the edge of zone, they have this strategy down packed, but once they move, that's when things will switch up and change up a little bit in their game plan.
Their mid game has been near ironclad, right? It's why they've made it to so many end games. Venno and Tyson, on the other hand, are starting to really figure things out when it comes to their mid games, because that's been a problem for them. And a big snipe from Venno, ice in his veins. And that kind of damage is needed, right? Because when I asked him what the biggest problem he's had is, he said to me, look, we're just not getting enough early Surge damage. Surge is king this season, right? He said it in the interview on the broadcast last week after the semi-finals. If you can get Surge, and a lot of it early on in the game, everything becomes so simple from there. We're seeing it with some of the better teams. Vanyak and Swizzy, Cammy and Seti, right? They've showcased just how important that early Surge can be. Venno and Tyson haven't had that ease of their game plan out of fencing. And so whenever they can get snipes like that, it does go such a long way.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest shakeups that happened, you know, going from the qualifiers week 1 and 2, the semifinals to here, that there were so many different formats, open style lobbies, that Surge wasn't necessarily as prevalent going through this process, but coming to the set lobby where you have 50 of the best teams in the world, you're not going to get those same opportunities, so you really have to start to think outside of the box and really hone in on your Storm Surge strategy, and that's what we've seen, the adaptation, the flexibility from a team like Queasy and Thomas throughout the qualification. We were even wondering how far they would even make it and started in the lower bracket, and Surge has been a huge part of that downfall, but you could see them adapting, changing things up, stealing other people's strategies, adding it as a part of their own, just like that, to chop down some of those Surge towers and hopefully get some damage that they need.
I mean, talk about an ad for the new season, eh? Bro's got the lightning, he's got the water bending, he's using all the new items.
Anything he can get his hands on, and in a fight like this, even though kind of risky, especially considering the history of Pink and Vico throughout the weekend, but a fight like this, I would love to see Pink and Vico figure out a way to take this fight, win this fight, and start to build up that confidence and that momentum, because it's the mid-game fights. It's the inability to consistently make it to the end game to where they're finding struggles, and I don't want to see them not take fights, because then they're going to be down on Surge with a whole different set of struggles. I just want to see them find the confidence that got them to this position, figure out a way to live to that potential. One of the most consistent duos throughout the qualification process. I want to see that version of Pink and Vico.
No, 100%. Who doesn't? Redoxy and Chip find themselves in a bit of trouble here, rotating in the storm behind Cammy and Seti. Don't know how much Cammy and Seti are going to let that one slide. They're going to get ahead. Let's see if they start to look back and punish Chip and Redoxy for even trying them. It looks like Cammy wants to, getting back up to that base, and look, still some of those old shields there. So a bush placed, and I'm sure he'll look to go for some sort of a peek potentially.
So much where decisions have to be made. Stay in zone, get a couple more shots in Surge. They're 350 above. And we can see them slowly falling down below at the time that they stay idle. See, already 2 eliminations for Swizzy.
Wow.
And Vanyak. And damage from across the map. They're looking like they're going to solidify another one on the Hedra. And even get some damage onto his teammate. 1,000 above Surge. What is this madness?
I mean, lesson learned. If you're not using water bending, you're not trying to win here. Let's chill out there, Spaniak. Let's chill out. I mean, Yeah, you got to be able to make sure you can handle it if you're dishing it out. And they do have some spare shields to use, but taking a large amount of damage in this space. I think once you've got 1,000 above, you're probably good for the rest of the game, lads. Save the damage for someone else.
Yeah, a lot of those heals that this is where they're beginning to kind of run out a lot of those extras. And they might second guess those eliminations. And I wanted to see Pink and Vico get a little bit more aggressive and start to make some moves. And Mappy's going to be their first target. Boxes him up, takes him down, almost made it look easy.
The rest of this game becomes a challenge though for Vico and Pink. They got a far rotation to make. And even though they've been able to deal with some of their surge problems, they're gonna have to deal with potential loadout problems, right? In terms of just materials. How do they get there? And Mats are probably gonna have to be forced to take another fight just to keep themselves kicking in this game.
$245. He's feeling the struggles right now, getting forced in and out of the zone, trying to really catch up. Knows that he has to leave Fast Roki down and out, or at least for now. He doesn't have a lot of HP heals on him. You can imagine there could be something left on over, but that's Cringe and Noms, and they're not ready to just solidify one elimination. They want both. They want to take down the full duo. They're going right in and at him. Especially if you look at their material count, not very healthy for them, or at least not where they want to be. So probably looking at this as an impact elimination where they can refresh themselves, but running from one fight right into another.
Oh.
That's reason, that's Vidil, or making him regret ever going up on top of Rift Island. And it does look like they are going to get credit for that elimination thanks to the storm. He tried to figure out a way out, but he just went too far out back to the lobby.
How Reason snuck that shot through with the DMR. Nasty stuff. But that is just what they will do. They're always going to punish your weaknesses, Reason and Vidil. That's what makes them such a top team. And now they sit in a good spot here on the island. They'll be able to head their way into zone if they like. I don't think they'll be able to go down and jump on anybody's rift.
And just like they're having that idea to stagger themselves, wait back. Zone hasn't moved just yet. Still got 20 more seconds for that. But you also see Malibu and Mustache on top of Rift Island. A lot of these teams opting to use that launch pad. Try to give themselves the easiest and hopefully safest rotation, as others are going to have to Rift and launch pad themselves. But going too early, that's what makes you a little bit of a target. And that's why you see Vidil immediately having to dive bomb himself down to try to create a little bit more line of sight safety.
Yeah, and I think they were just wary of that bush there. I would have liked to see them maybe try and cheat their way on in a bit, right? Because that rotation still now becomes a bit awkward for them as they try and get into the 6th zone. Thomas and Queasy, though, looking good here as they rotate into Brawlers.
Yeah, I like this decision. They're about 300 above the damage threshold. Instead of kind of positioning yourself high up on the edge of that mountain where everybody can kind of see you, they're taking the road less traveled, using the environmental cover to their advantage and down a mountain where not a lot of people are going to look. We already knew Vidil was down. Reason, just trying to make something happen by himself, and this is huge. This is huge because no placement points just yet. Podesai is going to go down, so already going to get a chance at 6 more points, and he takes out Snazy as well. That's a total of 12 being granted, but no HP for him to get. So it is going to be the end of the road for Reason and Vidil in this game.
Yeah, the positioning after they left the island was just always going to be a tough one for them. Vanyak going down there, so Swizzy left as a solo to play out the rest of this game. I mean, we've seen a couple of Vanyak clutches now, and so it's time for Swizzy to start pulling his weight. Make sure to clear the bush as he gets into the zone. And I mean, when we look at players going into end games as solos, he has one of the better setups for sure. Good on materials, the loot is pretty decent as well. He's got bananas to play Storm if it comes down to that. I mean, as long as somebody doesn't figure out he's a solo and just decide to really aggro him, you can make it deep in this game.
Yeah, and I think that's what everybody in this lobby is kind of hoping and betting against him making it deep in the game, because it's really the only chance for everybody to really start to close the gap is when one of them gets separated. You need to make sure the other one goes down. Top 25 though, so everybody left alive in this lobby is at least getting some placement points for their efforts. And we see Venno and Tayson making a quick rotation on over that mountain, sliding down just a little bit, but they gave themselves just the edge of zone, so that way they can hold on to their elevation without falling all the way down below that mountain.
Yeah, that's a nice spot. If the zone pulls back, they'll be poised to go up and take height on the mountain. The zone pulls far. It's in a really nice spot to just rotate down without too many materials needing to be used. Excellent position there from Tayson and Venom, Mustache Malapuka. Again, just trying to continue to wreak havoc on the lobby. Combination of the weaponry with the water bending. Just so much pressure applied to those guys in front of them.
Just quick moving by Seti and Cammy, just again going through almost unnoticed. And the only thing that I feel, wouldn't even call it a downfall, but just something you can wish just a little bit better in the game plan is just the ability to find a little bit more eliminations in these end games. I'm not necessarily concerned with the early game, with the mid game, because Cammy and Seti have always been known to play a little bit more passive, but it's in the ending portions, moments like this where they need to start picking up those eliminations. Otherwise, you're kind of just betting and hoping that Swizzy and Vaniac go down early through no fault of your own.
You know, like this, right? They suspicious of Vico, who's up there. So they pause for a moment just to try and gather themselves, pop a fizz, maybe even a banana, just to be able to get past him as quickly as possible. Now, they'll save the bananas, but they will use the fizz, and Vico does make his presence known. That will force them just to pause again here. Now bananas being used. Now that they're playing in the storm, understandable. Now they can just wrap around Vico even easier. And ultimately just start ramping. Yeah, we love to see this. We see this all the time. When you're ramping late into zone, just single ramp up. If someone chops you out, you got the fizz effect. You can drop down perfectly into a nice spot in the zone. And again, this is just looking like another textbook game for Cammy and Seti.
Yeah, they immediately jump down, take the front side of the zone. They don't want to risk everything come crashing down. They have to hope to try to maintain their position on the high ground. I think that's a great heads-up play, sticking to the blueprint, what they know best. Swizzy by himself. At least he's been able to get some points for placement so far. 6 teams going down, especially with that point multiplier. That is a good amount of points for Swizzy here as a solo, but in order to keep up the pace, he at least needs to make it into the top 10, or at least as close to it as possible.
You saw him looking at the loot there in the storm. I think that position for Swizzy, even though it's awkward, is definitely playable, right? He's got the fizz, he's got some bananas. Again, you can make a similar rotation to what we sort of saw Cammy and Seti do there, right? Where he just sort of waits for the storm to catch up and then uses the bananas to wrap his way through the storm into the safe zone. Thomas and Queasy have a bit more of an easier time. They will have to invest some materials, but ultimately that will get them the position they need inside of the safe zone.
Yeah, 130.
Oh no, Queasy gets taken down as he goes in. Combat and Blaha take him down.
Just a little bit of separation is all it really took. Now Thomas is really trying to make up for it with how well they have been doing up into this stage. You gotta hope Thomas stays alive just a little bit longer. He does have a little bit of materials to work with. Finds some Flowberry Fizz, only 4 charges. That's gonna give him 4 opportunities to bounce his way to the front side of zone and save as many of these materials as possible.
Yeah, I mean, this is where things start to get really tough for Thomas. I mean, I feel like we've seen him in these types of positions millions of times almost. But it will be another test for the big Thomas HD. Can he pull this clutch from the deepest depths of his bag? What does he have in store for us? Doing good now, just to sort of wrap around on these high players and use that fizz just to drop all the way down onto low. But will there be a refresh opportunity for him here?
He's feeling a lot of the pain that Swizzy's going through right now as a solo, but he's out of builds, trying to get a huge flank onto Venno. A couple of shots gonna be landed. Distraction is there, but Destru goes in, takes out Thomas. Cammy now by himself. No Seti in sight. 1 elimination. They're trying to figure out a way to power through, but he gets aggressed on. Quick thinking, moves that build around. That's Pink, that's Vico, and both of them go down simultaneously.
The gift of the mats won't be enough to keep him in the game though. Another solo we've been tracking. Swizzy sitting in a nice spot here, but the materials are starting to get low, so he needs to play this as well as he ever has. Trapped and Skrill on this layer. Needs to be careful he doesn't run into them. They will run into him though. And so now Swizzy fighting for his life in this game. Not really much to work with outside of this fizz. And he'll just use the last of it that he has just to make sure he runs his way on in. Needs to be careful not to run into Andalex and Sato, and he will move right past them.
He is moving and grooving his way to stay on top of the leaderboard. But Chap, T3eny, they're trying to be a driving force and stop him. They're trying to go through Trip. They steal away the high ground, and they're forcing him lower and lower. Trip's going to go down. Ferdoxy's going to get lost. Venom and Tayson are now the next team in their line of sight. But now they just switch targets yet again. They're keeping things moving and grooving.
Now, another situation where we'll have to see Veno get the job done. Swizzy has done so well to stay alive again. We start talking about holding on to leaves. He's done it perfectly here. The placement points will just keep them pushing at the top. At what point do we start to say, no one can close this lead, no one can catch up to these guys, because they're just going to keep on having games like this. Even in the face of adversity, Swizzy able to stay alive with 5 eliminations in this game. He's face to face with Veno and he will win. He takes him down. His KC brother, he doesn't care though. That's 6 on the game. Swizzy with the top 5.
He is just dominating the field, even as a solo with Sato and Andalex. They have something to say about a huge elimination. He even might have the Siphon medallion. I saw the shield going up after that elimination. Chap, T3eny, high ground, Andalex, Sato, they're there as well. They get another elimination onto Malibuca, and now it's come down to our final 2v2.
Chap and T3eny have been watching from height throughout this endgame. And with the zone looking like it's pulling up the mountain, this might just be the gift they needed. A gift from the Mount Olympus gods to win this game. They get dropped down though, they will have to fight. T3eny does the damage, he picks up 1. But is it going to be enough? He has the strength splashes to try and heal off. But it looks like Andalex is a bit more prepared than him. They're going to fight though, they're going to go on an engagement. Andalex with 1 HP left, he is able to get the shot. But it won't be enough to win the game. He's trying to hold on and he will not be able to. T3eny wins the game out. I mean, that was so close. Nobody believed in their heal off Jacob. But in the end, it was T3eny that could find the finishing blow.
That was just huge. It almost looked like he went back. He went back to try to clean up the knock on the down to try to get the Siphon and keep him alive. A decision that I feel like he's going to regret because he had enough heals. And at the end of the day, Chap and T3eny come out on top. And that is a huge momentum shift for a team that's been on fire throughout this FNCS.
I mean, we saw them in day 1 try to play for height, and in a lot of the games, it just didn't quite work out for them, right? They started off the competition up there and got absolutely owned by everybody, it seemed. But in this game, they were able to hold on. And in these final moments, I mean, cool as you like, T3eny, he's been here many times before. And thank goodness he was able to stay cool there, because Andalex should have had that 1-1 in most situations.
Yeah, it's just the thought process, trying to use the medallion, trying to get the Siphon. You can only imagine what is going on in the communication as well, but you got to give it up for a huge victory and a huge amount of points being gained. Let's throw it on over to Analyst to break down that action and more.